여보세요.
Namaste.
你好. Здравствуйте.
سودي مرحبا.
Hello. We have a story to tell.
Hi, my name is Shepret. I am 11 years old and I have a condition called oculocutaneous albinism, a form of albinism commonly called OCA1. For all 11 years of my life, I always had the white hair and pinkish skin you see now. For you see, when I was born, unlike most kids, I had a pale appearance which shocked both my parents and my doctor. She said,
Mr. and Mrs. Brett, your son has expressed certain characteristics which have been clarified, and your son, Chet, has been diagnosed with albinism, specifically OCA1. But do not fret, for it will only affect him physically, and he will not generally experience any other difficulties, though he may have problems with his vision.
But what about Chet?
Your Chet is not the only one. OCA1 is a condition that mainly affects both pigment in the skin and the eyes and is generally... Do any of your relatives by chance ever had a similar condition?
I believe my grandfather had.
Then there's your answer, for you see, this condition is inherited through an autosomal recessive pattern.
Huh?
Now I don't really know the specifics, but you see, deep within our skin, and under the many layers of skin and into the lower epidermis are the melanocytes. These cells are specialized as the factory for melanin, which are substances that give color or pigment to your skin, hair and eyes. But let's not get to that yet. For you see, within these melanocytes are many enzymes, each of which have a vital role to play in the functioning of our body. But for this particular case, we are referring to the enzyme called tyrosinase. This particular enzyme's role is to produce melanin through oxidation of tyrosine, followed by polymerization. Once the process is complete, the tyrosine morphs into melanin. These buggers rise to the surface and are then expressed, hence resulting in the color of all our skin. These come in different forms and ratios to create all the different shades of skin. This whole factory line production of melanin is controlled by the brains of the melanocytes, that is, their nucleus. For you see, within the nucleus of the cell are the packages of DNA known as the chromosomes. But out of all 46 of them, this condition requires special attention to the chromosome 11. This chromosome specifically carries the genetic information required for the production of melanin, all of which is stored on the TYR gene. Under normal conditions, the gene would provide instructions necessary for the creation of the tyrosinase enzyme, but in the young Chet here, the gene had a mutation. This mutation inhibits the gene's ability to correctly relay instructions for the production of tyrosinase. Instead, this causes the tyrosinase to degenerate within the endoplasmic reticulum, hence inhibiting the production of melanin due to the absence of the necessary enzyme. And because of this, the supply of pigmentation provided by melanin is limited, hence resulting in lighter skin, eye, and
and that's all they remember. But now it's time for what I remember. As you saw before, I was born with and still have white hair and pale skin. Though I had such a ghostly complexion, the doctor told me that I may develop more color in my skin and hair as I grow older. We all waited 10 years. But it never happened. The symptoms were still there. My white hair, pinkish skin was still there. Even when I reached 5, my appearance didn't change. Even standing under the burning hot sun of Mexico didn't give me a tan. All it did was give me a scar. See? But at least it's not bad. I quite like it. But now I have to be careful of how much time I spend in the sun, as during my trip in Mexico I realized the fact that my skin can easily burn with exposure to the sun. Because of my lack of dark pigment, melanin or something like that, which helps protect the skin from the sun. or something. I don't know. Anyway, when I came back from Mexico, it was time for me to go to school. And boy, was I nervous. Just look at me. At first, I had a few friends. They were fun, I suppose. But when I grew older, I had none. People stopped talking to me, playing with me, and in the end, I was alone. Then the names spread. They started calling me names like alien and freak because of my skin color and my eyes. Normally my eyes are blue, but sometimes they appear red. For you see, my eyes are see-through, like glass, and because of this, they appear red in some lighting. This is because the lack of color in my iris allows the blood inside of my eye to be seen. It sounds pretty cool, but really, it's not. But no matter how many times I told them that it's just a symptom of my condition, they kept calling me names.
Alien!
Freak!
Ghostface! What's wrong with your face? What happened to your eyes?
Oh, did I do it again? I think I did. Eventually, I got used to it.
Alien!
Freak!
Ghostface! Fiend!
Demon!
Monster! You don't belong here!
Well, I try to, but it's hard sometimes. Not only was it hard for me to make friends, but also for me to learn. No matter how hard I squinted, my extreme nearsightedness stopped me from learning. Even if I move closer, the world is still blurry. The doctor recommended glasses, but I rejected them. All they would ever do was give them another excuse for them to pick on me. So I asked my parents for lenses, and they asked my doctor, and he said,
Before I prescribe lenses, I need to know if this is related to your condition, and so take this referral letter to this electroretinogram test. They will explain further.
and then he said,
Why, hello there. How are you?
I'm good.
That's great. So what are you here for today?
Well, you see, we're here for an ERG test for our son. We have a referral letter.
Oh, so you're that kid. Now I know why you're here.
Yeah, you do?
Of course. You're the kid who's here for the electroretinogram test.
Yeah, the electionimono.
The electroretinogram. What a wonderful technology. What does it do, may you ask? Well, the electroretinography test, or the ERG for short, measures the electrical response of light-sensitive cells in your eyes and can detect the abnormal function of the retina. This technology is based on the fact that when flashes of light come to the eye, the rods, cones, and other cells of the retina produce tiny amounts of electricity. Wow, electricity coming from your eyeball? Can you imagine that?
Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
Just wait till you see how it works.
How does it?
That is a wonderful question, Chet. You see, during electroretinography, the amount of light produced by the cells of the retina in relation to the amount of light the eyes receive is studied. Through this, we can then work out any abnormalities in your eye. You see, the ERG helps us identify hidden abnormalities in the eye that you normally wouldn't see while looking at it physically. In young Chet, for example, physically I can see you experience nystagmus. Nystagmus. And from what I've read, you also experience blurry vision and extreme nearsightedness.
Yeah, I do.
That's called astigmatism. Those two conditions are both common vision problems related with albinism. Those who suffer from albinism, including you, will experience abnormal optic fiber pathways which can affect their A and B waves. These waves are a visual representation of your eye functioning and will be obtained after you go through the stages of the ERG test, which involves two parts. The first involves the full dilation of your eyes through the administration of standard dilating eye drops. An electrode in the shape of a small silver disc will be attached to your forehead with tape. Insert special contact lenses in them. Don't worry, it feels just like eyelashes. These electrodes will sense any small electrical signals that are generated by your retina. In the first part of the test, you will look at the center of a black and white checkerboard screen that will flicker for 30 seconds at a time. This will be repeated many times, and that's the end of the first part. Now for the second part. In this part, you will look at a sphere. Flashes of light will flicker for 20 seconds at a time. This will be repeated 4 or more times. Once both parts of the tests are over, the results are converted into a graph of both A and B waves through a monitor. A person with no abnormalities in his eye will have a normal A and B wave pattern with approximate increases in electrical activity alongside increasing light intensities. However, in most albinos, studies have shown inconsistencies in their waves due to their condition.
You mentioned that it could help in treatment as well.
You see, this technology has many implications. Once we determine whether or not his vision is related to his condition, and judging from previous experience, you don't want glasses.
Yeah.
Well, if it's that bad, I guess we can send you to a more specialized school, if need be.
One where you would be more confident and be able to fit in more because you would be surrounded by those much like you. So, eventually, you'd feel much better when you're in an accepting environment.
I agree, as it would improve your grade as well as your self-confidence.
For if he were to go to school, he would be provided with a suitable amount of care and could improve. If he would not need schooling, he would also improve due to his vision, which may be the reason for his academic flaw. So overall, Chet would probably be a more successful and confident individual if he were to require special school. Another thing is that the ERG test can also show the genetics of the condition, which could allow for you, Mr. and Mrs. Brett, to determine whether or not your next child will be an albino. It's a process called amniocentesis, which tests the unborn baby's DNA for albino-like qualities only if the previous child was an albino, like Chet here. And the genetics of his condition is known, which can be found through the ERG. So rest assured, Mr. and Mrs. Brett, with the ERG results, you can determine your next child's phenotype. So, overall, it's a win-win situation. Chet can improve his grades, be more confident, and prosper in an environment he is more suited for. And his future sibling could be detected for albinism even during pregnancy.
So, will it not affect Chet and my family, but individuals in society?
For you see, society does not recognize the sufferings of individuals who require special treatment, whether it be animals or humans. The increasing awareness of vision problems that have been revealed by the ERG test can contribute to our society's increasing understanding of hardships that are faced by those who suffer albinism or any other vision-related condition. This has been done through the publication of the various ERG tests that have been conducted on albino organisms. These can demonstrate the outlining cause of the poor vision to the abnormal functions of the fibers in the retina, as well as the various vision problems that come about as a result of this. By making these results public, individuals within society may begin to see the true extent of how much their condition has impacted them and their body. This can stir up a desire within the population for a change to occur, but that's just what I think. Anyways, enough blabbering. Let's go to the ERG test, shall we?
I really hope the lenses work out, because if they don't, then nothing will ever change. I really hope they do.
Oh, don't worry. You're not the only one.
Why me?
Well, we asked that same exact question 9 years ago when you were one.
9 years ago.
But why our son?
Your Chet isn't the only one. For approximately 1 in 17,000 individuals are affected by albinism.
Do this by have anything to do with my grandfather?
How should I put it?
It's inherited?
Well, to be specific, it's inherited in an autosomal recessive pattern. You see, autosomal recessive pattern refers to when both copies of a gene in each somatic cell have mutations, though they are not necessarily expressed. For example, for Chet to inherit both of the recessive alleles, both of you would have had to be heterozygous dominant.
But I don't recall having any albino relatives.
That's because a recessive allele can remain dormant over many generations, as long as it's inherited. And unless the two recessive alleles meet during sexual reproduction, the allele will never be expressed. However, The allele was expressed in Chet, hence expressing the albino characteristics.
How would this affect Chet's future life and children?
That depends on who he mates. If he were to mate with another albino, then all of his children would also be albinos. But if he were to marry a carrier of the recessive allele, then each of his children would have a 3-in-1 chance of being albino. And if he were to mate an unaffected individual who is homozygous dominant, then there would be no chance that any of his children would be albino, but all of his children would be a carrier. What happens next depends on who his offspring mate with.
So it's up to chance?
Yes, I suppose it is.
So they just happened to meet?
They were bound to meet. After all, it was written in the stars. Everyone on this earth has once had an opportunity to be with you. 16,999 out of 17,000 didn't take the opportunity. But 1 in 17,000 did, and yet none of them had a say. Whether it be the 1 in 10,000 in Northern Ireland, or the 33,000 people who had albinism in Tanzania, or the 5 in 100,000 in Europe and the USA, or even the 20,000 in the 100,000s of Nigerians. None of them wished for it, yet chance just wasn't on their side. Just remember this, though OCA1 is extremely rare in African Americans, that doesn't mean they're lucky. For everyone has an equal chance of attaining OCA1 with no single group having a greater chance of inheriting it than others. But it wasn't just bad luck, it was just destiny.
And that's just my story. That's one of many, but just remember this.
Don't judge us through the color of our skin, but rather through the content of our character.